Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Frenemies podcast. This is episode number 4. Today we are doing the Atlanta Braves. Joined as always by David Swor and our special guest tonight, another teammate of ours from Tennessee Temple University, Mr. Steven Shelton. Steven, it's great to have you tonight, buddy.
Well, hey, guys, I really appreciate the invitation. I didn't think this would be something that ever came about. Us three doing a whatever you call one of these together. I'm just lucky that you're still awake. I mean, you got 7 kids now, so I'm just lucky you're still there. And Swor, listen, I'm so impressed West Virginia has internet at this point. I don't even know what to do with myself.
Well, barely. It's a little shady out here.
Does it still make that sound when you dial it up? Does it still make that? That's what I thought.
Definitely. I don't want to hear it from you Tennessee guys, man. After living out there 4 years, I just don't want to hear it.
Well, first of all, it's down there. Yeah, you're okay. But secondly, do you not seen Iron Man? Chattanooga's Gig City, buddy. I mean, come on. We are the internet.
I hear you. Hey, DJ, I want to interrupt you real quick, and I'll shut up. I got us a new theme song to open up our episode with. See what you think about this. Can y'all hear that? Hold on, it's about to kick in here. What do you think, DJ?
Oh, no.
Come on, man. Hey.
No.
I just had to throw that in there. Steve's a South guy, so a Southern guy, so maybe we need to make that our theme song going forward.
I'm thinking this episode, that'd be great. Welcome to Braves country. That's all I got to say.
Why did I have a feeling that song would somehow pop into one of these episodes?
I was waiting for the perfect moment. Steve led me right into it.
This is it right here. Absolutely.
All right. Well, Steven, why don't you go ahead and give us the 2019 recap of the Atlanta Braves last season, everything you thought went well, didn't go well, from a Braves fan perspective.
I mean, if you look at a Braves fan perspective, although I don't know why you have this Washington Nationals hat on. That's unbelievable. I guess they had a sale when you're buying that Cubs crap. You got that free. But anyways, that's the point. The Braves I thought was a year ahead. If you look at the Braves roster, they were a year ahead. They finished 97-65 to win an NL East. I really thought the pitching was a year ahead. But if you look at the Braves overall MLB rankings as a team, they're 11th in MLB in strikeouts, which is the only downside of their offense. They're 9th in MLB in batting average. They're 9th in MLB in stolen bases, 7th in on-base percentage. They're 8th in slugging, 8th in home runs, and the ERA was in the top 10 as well. So the pitching was solid. The offense was solid. You had some guys that had really career years. Josh Donaldson comes out of nowhere, has just a fantastic year for the Braves. Of course, that leads into him wanting a contract that would extend him till he's age 57, and no one's going to give him that kind of contract except for the Minnesota Twins, who would sign anyone at this point. But I really thought that the Braves did a good job. I thought the offseason was solid, but the Braves have got a really bad taste in their mouth. Braves fans have a bad taste in their mouth. They did away with the Tomahawks. I know you guys every stadium has different traditions, but the Atlanta Braves brought the Tomahawk to the old Fulton County Stadium when Deion Sanders signed with the Braves. He was a Florida State guy. That the Tomahawk chop got just borrowed from Florida State. There was a Cardinals player last year in the playoffs that kind of made a big deal of it. The Braves decided not to put any Tomahawks out. You've got 55,000 fans there that all of a sudden are just irate, and you can tell it. And so they end up getting, Cardinals scored 10 runs in the first inning against the Braves that last game. I'm sitting there. It's the worst game I've ever attended, and I've been to some bad Braves games over the years. And so not as many as Chicago fans. But, at the end of the day, it's one of those things that you want baseball to get started back. And I really think now, if you go into this season, I know we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, but you go into this season, the Players Association did everything they could to destroy baseball again. And greed has taken over. That instead of being a prorated contract on the games played, we've decided we want our full contract, which no one thinks they deserve at this point. But now we've got 60 games. But I really think when we start to talk about going into the 2020 season, 60-game season plays great into the Braves' favor because of the roster they have and how many guys they have that have great first halves and terrible second halves. And some of the pitching aspects that we've got with some of the guys we've signed. You're talking about 60 games, guys, a five-man rotation. We're talking about 10 to 12 starts max. And Swor threw a lot off the bump. And, 12 games in a season, you can let it fly for 12 games and just leave it out there. So it's not like you've got to baby yourself. You're ready every five games. But, if you look at the starting pitching coming back from last year, Max Fried was 17-6 with a 4.02 ERA. How many guys with over a 4 ERA win 17 games in the major leagues? Just not a lot. But the Braves did a great job of scoring runs. They were the most exciting team to watch in baseball, I believe, not because I'm a Braves fan, but so many come from behind wins, so many late wins. And so Mike Soroka will be part of that rotation again this year. He was 13-4 with a 2.6 ERA. And then Mike Poltnevitz, he was 8-6 last year, really struggled midway through the year, but picked it back up, but finished with a 4.5 ERA or 4.54 ERA. So that's the top three. And so if you're going into the playoffs, that's the three guys you're probably going to lean on at this point. But the problem is you've got to have two more slots. And those two more slots for the Braves, they've got four guys. Two of them are going to be really ripe. You got Kyle Wright, who was 0-3 last year. This guy's probably the number one guy in the prospect in the farm system as a pitching prospect. Sean Newcomb, who was 6-3 last year, actually pitched in 55 games, 3.16 ERA. He's a great left-handed pitcher. But then we have two guys, one of which, DJ, you're very familiar with, Cole Hamels. He hurt his shoulder lifting weights. Let me explain what that is for you two guys. It's where you pick up heavy things and you do different exercises that build your muscles. I know that's way over. Never mind. So, Hamels last year, though, for the Flubs, he was 7-7, with a 3.8 ERA. And that's hard to do with a team that didn't score a lot of runs. I mean, Chicago didn't score a lot of runs last year. So to have a 3.8 ERA and go 7-7. But then you have King Hernandez. Felix, we've signed him as a project. He was 1-8 last year, 6.4 ERA. The problem with this is, or maybe the mystery is the guy's throwing pretty well. The reports are he's got his fastball back up 92, 93. And again, let's talk about a 60-game season. You need him to throw 10 games. Now, can he throw 10 games? Who knows? He may throw one and the Braves say, hey, it is what it is. You had a great career. You're probably a Hall of Fame pitcher for the Mariners. It's over. But every once in a while you can catch lightning in a bottle. And I think, if the Braves can catch lightning in a bottle with either Hamels or with Hernandez, they've got a chance to win the East. Now, I really think they're probably the third best team in the East because I think they've lost enough with Brian McCann being gone, with Josh Donaldson being gone, Julio Teheran being gone. Dallas Keuchel is another guy that last year for the Braves was incredible down the stretch. He was the club leader. Now you lose that guy, and you're trying to replace. And that's kind of why they signed Hamels, is to replace him. But you look at him now, and you're kind of let's piece this thing together and see if it works. But you do still have a ton of young talent on this Braves team that I think can stay excited for 60 games. I mean, my goodness, we played more than half of that in college.
Yeah. So I'll have to admit something. I really like the Braves. It pains me to say that, but I'm like you. A short season, super deep bullpen. If one of those rookie pitchers were to come out or whatever, I think the Braves could be extremely dangerous. They are in a little bit of a tough division, but they got a star in Acuna. They got a star in Albies. They've got great guys around them. I think the Braves could be very dangerous. I like to look at Vegas odds. They picked them with only a 7% chance of winning the World Series. If I'm a betting guy, I'm taking that because I think the Braves could definitely challenge.
Well, I don't think you have many teams in Major League Baseball, not only the National League East, but you've got Luke Jackson, who had a terrible postseason, but he had 18 saves last year. Then you've got Will Smith, who we signed, not the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, another Will Smith. You've got Will Smith. This guy had 34 saves last year. He was 6-0 with 34 saves. He's a Georgia guy, Newnan, Georgia. He is a hop, skip, and a jump from Atlanta. So this is a guy that is a Braves fan growing up. He is a ultimate closer, but all of a sudden you look, but the Braves have another closer, Mark Melanson, who was 5-2 last year, was 12 of 12 with save opportunities. So when you look at this bullpen, you got 3 guys that on any given night that you can hand the ball to. Now, myself, I like Will Smith coming in. Will Smith, no one's Mariano Rivera. No one's that guy. But if you get a guy that was 6-0 with 34 saves and only blew 1 last year, I'm handing him the baseball. But that back end, when you talk about the Braves in their glory days, you had a Mark Wohlers, you had John Rocker, even when you had Craig Kimbrell with Ventures ahead of him, you had a 7th, 8th, and 9th inning guy. And I think that's what the Braves have set up this year with this rotation. But again, the rotation can go deeper because the pitch count doesn't really come into play from a season standpoint. It does from a game standpoint, but you can let these guys go a little farther because they're not going to pitch anywhere near as much. And when you have those young arms, and like you said, if they can get a young guy that can, one of these young guys, if you have 4 out of 5 guys that you can depend on, that 5th game, rubber match, listen, that sometimes those things are dead in the water anyway, especially a Sunday getaway game. These guys are ready to get on the plane and head to the next town. And so I really think, you're talking about Ozzie Albies. Albies is a great, unbelievable second baseman. Last year he hit 24 home runs, 86 RBIs. Can he do that again? Well, if you look at Ozzie Albies, every year he's played in the pros, his first half is tremendously better than his second half. And I think you'll see that with a lot of these guys. Acuna is the same way. First half, much better than the second half. I think you've got the best first baseman in the National League, Freddie Freeman. I don't think there's anybody better I'm talking about defensively, hitting for average. And with Freddie last year, hit 38 home runs, 121 RBIs, and hit for 295. I'll take that every day. I really will. Travis d'Arnaud, he was with the Rays. You're familiar with him. We signed him in the offseason. I think he's a big get. We had to have somebody to take over for Brian McCann. We had Tyler Flowers left. Flowers hit 11 home runs, 34 RBIs, but only hit 229. And so when you've got Travis d'Arnaud coming in, he hit 251 with 16 home runs and 69 RBIs last year. And so I really think that with that guy, with this bullpen, with this starting rotation, if they can get that at least the 4th guy in place with those top 3, again, you have some big shoes to fill with losing Donaldson. But, we signed Marcell Ozuna, that was a member of the DJ's favorite team, the Cardinals, last year. This guy hit 29 home runs and drove in 89 RBIs. He hit 241, but he's going to DH. He's awful in the outfield. I watched this guy circle a couple fly balls, and this guy is horrendous. Horrendous in the outfield. He looks like Robert Hall chasing a fly ball to center field. That's how bad this guy really looks out here. So, but I hope he's watching. So, but what you're going to do, though, if we have the DH, which they're saying we're going to have the DH, then the DH, you put Ozuna into the DH role. You let Nick Markakis, who did hit 285 last year, 9 home runs, 62 RBIs. You put him in left. You put Ender Inciarte in center. Now, this guy, he's been injured the last couple of years. He's one of the best defensive outfielders in the pros. Let him roam center field, move Acuna from center field to right field. Acuna, 41 home runs last year, 101 RBIs, hit 280 and stole 41 bases. This guy's a 40-40 guy. And so if you do that, your power's going to be way down for the Braves. You're not going to have – I don't think you're going to have Albies hit 24 home runs again. I don't think you're going to have Dancing Swanson hit 17 home runs again. I don't think Acuna hits 41 again. Your RBIs are going to be down, or your home runs are going to be down. Your power's going to be down. But can your starting pitching just be a little bit better, just good enough that you can get them over the bump? And I think with the Braves, the main thing is maybe not to win the NL East, but just to get into the playoffs, because again, everyone's going to be fresh. We're going to go into the playoffs. The 61st game of the season that's going to be played this year is going to be a playoff game. And that to me is just completely exciting.
Yeah.
My recap of the 2019 season for the Braves, the only thing I got to say about that is you let the Cardinals get to the NLCS, so that was terrible. So I'll just move on from that right away.
Well, the Cardinals would not even been in playoffs if the Cubs could have won at least half the games they played against them, but that's whatever today. Keep going. I would like to take a minute, though. Listen, DJ Cox, David will tell you, DJ was a guy that was undersized, that played center field. We had 2 undersized center fielders. I mean, it was like the circus out there. We had Jason Price, JP Price, and we had DJ. DJ was one of the hardest working guys that you'll ever find. And you can see that transpire into, I've watched his coaching career blossom. He's done a great job outside of the great city of Chicago. But, other than this year being his best year ever in coaching, I know hats off to you and what you've done with that program. And listen, you had a guy that's drafted. How many guys that coach high school baseball can say I had a guy that was drafted into the major leagues? And so, this is just a testament to what you're doing up there. But, Swor and I, we couldn't do anything outside of selling insurance. So that's what we're doing now. But you've done a great job raising a great family. And I tell you, we couldn't be prouder of you.
Yeah, that's right.
I appreciate that, guys. It means a lot. It really does. Coaching is, as you guys know, it's my passion. I've been doing it for 18 years now, which is crazy to think. I got a job right out of high school, so I got lucky in that. But, man, I tell you what, we had a lot of fun in our Temple days, and I learned a lot there from a lot of you guys. And, when you come in from high school, it's a whole different animal when you get to college. And there's definitely a lot that I learned from you guys as well, both of you guys. And I appreciate those kind words. So, Steven, if you
I wouldn't repeat anything I told you in the outfield, but that's
I was right next to Steven, man. Left fielder for us. I'll tell you what. Here's one thing, though, that Steven always made me look bad. You go out and you get a ball in the gap, and normally, the center fielder, if it's more towards me, I'm going to take it and throw it in. Well, I'm not taking that ball that's a little bit more towards center field when Steven's coming across, because he could take the ball from the wall and throw it all the way home. I would probably be lucky to hit the cutoff man, but Steven had an absolute cannon. So any ball that was somewhat close to us, he'd be looking at me and be like, no, that's you, man. Chuck that thing in. So rocket arm, it got you a long way on the mound and in left field. So definitely got a lot there. So, Steven, give me your biggest, you mentioned a lot already, but what's the biggest strength of the Atlanta Braves in 2020?
You know what? I think it's the infield. I think when you look at Freddie Freeman, Ozzie Albies, and Dansby Swanson, I think if you look at those guys, they're number one. There's three leaders on the team, but one of the bigger strengths that I think that we know from when you play college baseball, most of the times when you play smaller college baseball, you don't play with the same team ever. Every year it seems like a new team. Now we had our core, we had our Howards, our Morgans, our Swors, our DJs, our JPs, but these guys like each other. They really, truly, they're not just, hey, high five in the dugout type thing. These guys really like each other. And the same thing we were. We truly, truly cared for each other. We truly liked each other. And there were some we didn't like, but for the core of that, and I think this is the same with these Braves teams. You watch them have a walk-off. It's not that they're all out there pretending. They're out there. I mean, they really, truly like each other. And that's, same thing for the Yankees when you talk about Jeter. You watch Jeter and go out and with the lefty, starting lefty, went out and took Rivera out for the last time. Yeah. So when those guys go, you could tell they loved each other. And those guys were family. And I think this is what you're seeing with the Braves. You got a lot of young guys, and we've signed. Listen, Dansby's locked up for a few years, 5 to 6 years. Ozzie's locked up. Freddie's locked up. Acuna signed. He signed for peanuts. I mean, I don't know what he was thinking, but he signs for peanuts. We got him locked up for another 5 years. I think this Braves core of the Braves team that really, really like each other, I think that is probably the greatest strength. I think your coaching staff is another thing that if you really are looking at strength, I think people like playing for Brian Snitker. I think they do. I think you've got one of the best baseball minds that had some personal struggles and personal demons in his coaching career with Ron Washington. This is a guy that I watched in a pregame one time. We got there before batting practice. We had some special tickets through media deal. He was walking around with Acuna. And I don't know what he was telling him, but it was a father and son talk. And I think you've got Ron Washington who can relate to these guys, to talk to these guys. You've got the fastest first base coach in America with Eric Young. I'll put him up against anybody's first base coach that you want to put up. And so I think with Young there being able to play multiple positions when he was in the pros, Kevin Seitzer, hitting coach. I mean, this guy, come on. This guy, he was not a great hitter, but by golly, he can teach hitting. He did with the Royals. He's doing it here. Rick Knetz, he was with the Orioles back when Messina was there. He was just so many good coaches on this staff that I think they also get along together. But I think that's your strength. I think it's your coaching staff, people like playing for these guys, and also just the family type atmosphere that these guys bring each and every day.
David, what do you got for strength?
I'm going to go with the lineup, specifically the depth of the lineup. So you look at that outfield, they've got Acuna, they got Markakis out there, they got Ozuna, and then their two top prospects are both outfielders. I did a little bit of reading up on that. I wasn't familiar. They're projecting the one guy. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce his name, but to be a star. He may be up this year. And with that DH being a factor, I kind of expect him to be up this year, to be honest, because I think everybody's going to push all the chips to the middle. I would. And so I'm going to go with their lineup. They're good from top to bottom, and their bench is deep.
Yeah, I think the kid you're talking about is a center fielder. I got to watch him when he's in Double-A. He came and played against the Lookouts. His name just slipped my mind when you said you weren't going to try to say it. I started laughing about that. So, but this guy, Acuna, is really fast, and Inciarte is really fast. This guy is super speed guy. This guy reminds you of like a Vince Coleman, Willie McGee. If it's up in the air, we're going to catch it, top guy. So I agree with you. If the problem is, can he hit at the major league level? And that's going to be the question. Whether they turn him loose or not is, can he hit at the major league level? If he proves he can over a small stretch, I think you're right. I think they push all the chips in and say, listen, we're going to put our best nine on the field, and we're going to go for it. And so Camargo is a guy that we've not talked about. He's going to be the everyday third baseman. He hit 7 home runs, 32 RBIs last year in a limited role. He's more of a utility player last year, but he only hit 233. So then you've got the big question mark, Austin Riley. Does he get the chance to start at third base if Camargo doesn't play well? 18 home runs and 49 RBIs. He had 226. He had 18 home runs in like 3 weeks. It's like every time he got up, he was like 3 for 4 with 2 home runs. And Chipper Jones really said he thinks he's going to be a Troy Gloss type player. He's going to hit you 20 to 25 home runs, drive in 75 runs a year, and hit about 250. And so if the Braves knew they could get that out of him, I think that he's in there. But I think he was so bad after that initial just set the world on fire 3 or 4 weeks in the year that they had to move him back down to the AAA. But if he gets a chance and he's able to kind of put back up those same numbers, I think Camargo goes back to utility role. I think and Riley goes back to that third base spot and hitting it in that 5th spot in the lineup.
Christian Pache is the guys you're talking about, the prospect, the outfield guy. Absolute stud from everything I've read as well. For my biggest strengths for these guys, I'm going to go with Albies, Acuna, and Freeman. When you got 3 guys like that hitting in this lineup, that's pretty deadly. All 3 of those guys pretty much had awesome career years last year. Big reason why the Braves were so successful like they were. When you build around 3 type hitters like that, you're going to be good. And I think by far that's their biggest strength. So, Steven, with that being said, what are you worried about as your biggest weakness for this 2020 team?
I'm worried about the pitching. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm worried about, you're looking at, although Soroka and Fulton Evans are both guys that they've been able to depend on. Fried is a guy that won 17 games last year. That ERA was still over 4. That's hard to do. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but how many guys have won 17 games or over 15 games with an ERA over 4? And that 4th and 5th spot, I mean, you're either going to go with a really green rookie or you're going to hope that the Band-Aid and duct tape hold on two guys that will carry that back end. I'm not worried about the bullpen. Even if you have an injury to one of these guys, you still got 2 more guys that can close the game. And I think we all know if you got 3 guys in the bullpen out of the 5 that sit out there or 6 that sit out there, if you got 3 guys that are nothing or are more than any inning eaters, you've got a chance to win a lot of baseball games in major leagues. And I think that's going to hold true. I think that if the Braves decide to go Kyle Wright, Sean Newcomb, I think we're going to be okay. But again, that's going to give you, that gives you 2 lefties and 3 righties in that rotation, which is not bad. The problem in Braves country is we were a little spoiled by having 3 guys named Smoltz, Maddux, and Glavine for a little while. They were pretty good. They weren't bad. And so the overall thing with the Braves, again, I think it's the pitching really bothers me. Really, And so, but offensively, again, I know we're talking about Freeman and Cunha and all these, but gosh, is it going to be? Are they going to be able to duplicate anything close to what they did last year? And if we're able to do this again next year, and I hope we are, we'll be saying, man, that guy had 12 home runs last year. He was unbelievable. It's going to be such a different conversation. He drove in 40 runs. Man, he drove in 40 runs last year. We're going to be like, what? I mean, it's just going to be so different for us. But again, this National League, I think right now, if we're looking at that, I'm thinking it's Dodgers and everyone else down here. I mean, you've got to. And I think the Dodgers were built, though, over a 162-game season. You take the Yankees last year with all the injuries they had. And I heard David on here just crying and belly aching about all the games. But listen, but he's right. If you took those Yankees and you had them healthy for 60 games, all you need them to – and a lot of those guys could have played 60 games. But the Yankees healthy for 60 games, they're winning the World Series, I think. And so it's just – this is just so – I'm excited. I'm not going to lie to you. Every game means so much more. And I'm a baseball guy through and through, but 162 games gets old. It just gets old. I can't – you play the Mets 37 times a year. I mean, how many times can you get up to play the Mets? I mean, so I just think that anything and everything, you get a team that's hot for 1 month, that's half your season. 1 month. You got a team that wins 18, 19 games in a month, they're probably going to make the playoffs if they go 500 the next month. So I'm just, like I said, I'm excited for baseball to be back. My wish and prayer was for them to have opening day on July 4th. That's America in itself. Let's do flyovers on every stadium. Let's fly Old Glory everywhere, and let's play baseball. But no, like I said, I think the NL East, it will not surprise me if the Braves win the NL East or if they finish third in the NL East. I think there's 3 teams there that can do that. But again, there's going to be Braves are going to need a lot of good breaks.
David, 2020 weaknesses?
Yeah. I'm going to have to agree with Steve. It's the rotation. I don't believe in King Felix. I don't really believe in Cole Hamels anymore. I think he's tailing off. He might be a good number 5, maybe number 4. But having said that, I'm still a believer in the Braves because, as Steve said, all you really need from them is 4 or 5 innings. So if King Felix can give you 5 innings of 3-run ball and they got the lead, they're a pretty good chance they're going to win the game. But that's definitely the weak point. I would have liked to see them try a little bit harder in the offseason to find some pitching somewhere because I believe this team can do it. So I'll stick with him with the pitching. What do you say?
Yeah, and to go back to Hamels real fast. Hamels pitched in 27 games last year. 27 games, and that's what this is. He pitched in half the games that each of our teams will play in this year. Max Fried pitched in 30 games. That's half. Soroka pitched in 91 or 29. Fulton Evans pitched in 21. This is just mind-boggling to me. Sean Newcomb pitched in 55 games. Yep. 55. That's 5 less than they're going to play. And so I just think that, again, I agree with you. Hamels is no more than a 4th guy in the rotation, probably a 5th guy. I think King Felix, I think they just kind of said, hey, we'll throw you $1 million. Come in here. Let's see if you can just do it one more time. And I think there's a lot of people around the Braves organization that think that this guy could. There's an outside shot. If this guy gave us 5 quality starts, it's going to be worth it. And so, but again, I really think that if you look at this Braves team, I can't agree with you more. It's the starting rotation. That's where it makes or breaks for the Braves this year.
Yep.
So I'm going to go with getting over that playoff hump. And Steven, I know you as a Braves fan. 1995 was the last time you guys won the World Series. You guys seem to make the playoffs every year. And it's just the trouble of getting to the World Series and actually winning it. That's a weakness of theirs as a franchise. I'm not going to lie with you, Steven. One of the things that I kind of struggle with a little bit with this team is you mentioned d'Arnaud as a catcher. I get that. Offensively, I'll give you that. But this guy defensively, I'm telling you, if I'm not mistaken, he led the league in pass balls last year. And I know for a fact he had 35 stolen bases on him last year. So from a defensive standpoint, I'm really worried about him if he's going to be your everyday catcher. That's one of the biggest weaknesses I think that this team has. I'm not, a lot of the Mets guys were not wanting to throw to him, and that's a problem. If your catcher is somebody you don't want to throw to, as you guys know, you're both pitchers, you would know that more than I do. But if you don't got somebody behind the plate that you want to throw to, like a Brian Howard, then you got some problems back there, and I see that as definitely one of their problems back there. So we'll see, if they can get that. And did you mention something too? I don't know if I'm missing something or not, Steven. Maybe you can answer this. Is Tyler Flowers gone, or is he the backup?
That's what I was just about to say. The Braves have a great catcher. The problem is they have a great catcher on two different catchers. Flowers does a great job calling a game. You can tell that he's been tutored by Brian McCann for a long time. So Flowers, he does a good job of holding runners or keeping runners at bay. Not a lot of guys want to run on Flowers. He's not electric back there. He's not a Pudge, or he's not a guy like up in Chicago, or a guy with the Cardinals. He's not that type of guy, but he's a guy good enough that he has the respect of the guys at first base and second base. But he just doesn't hit the ball that great. And then you've got d'Arnaud, who does do a good job of making contact and putting the ball in play and driving in runs. But again, he's just not that great defensively. So you're going to give up. So if you start one, you're going to have some offense. Start the other ones, you're going to have defense. But you're going to lose on the other side of that coin each and every time. So I couldn't agree with you more. I think, though, if you look at who was available, I think d'Arnaud was the best guy we could have went out and signed. That's just, there wasn't great options out there. There are a couple guys in the AAA that but the problem is, I think the last position you're going to bring up in a 60-game season is a catcher, because it takes so long to get that continuity between a catcher and a pitcher. When I came in for a limited, time when we played, if Brian Howard was back there, let's go. But if you had somebody else like a Jenkins or somebody else back there, all of a sudden it's like and Swor can tell you, it's like it's a different game. It's like you're throwing to. It's kind of like you go from throwing to your dad to throwing to your Uncle Bob, who's never thrown to before. And so it's just, Howard studied the batters. He knew, and same thing with, I think, Brian McCann. I thought you never hardly saw McCann get shook off. It was, here we go. Same thing with when, Javi Lopez, Greg Maddux always threw to Javi Lopez. That was it. There was nobody else that he was going to throw to. And I think that when you get that comfort zone in there, that continuity that these guys already have with Flowers, I think that's where you're going to find out if d'Arnaud, if he starts sitting more and more and more, you're probably going to figure out really fast that these guys have kind of told Snicker, hey, this is the guy we want behind the plate. And then all of a sudden you do lose some of that offense that you need, because I just don't think the Braves offense is going to be as good as it was last year. And I think with the pitching being suspect on fourth and fifth spot in the rotation, I think they're going to need that offense to be just that much better. But I don't see Ozuna hitting 29 home runs with the Braves this year. I just don't. Well, I know he won't. That'd be one a game. But I don't see those guys putting up those same power numbers.
All right, so I'm going to go with both of you on this one, starting with you again, Steven. I'm going to name the names of all the guys that they added to the team and the ones that were the key losses from this team. I want you to give me one guy that you added and one guy that you lost that is going to hurt you the most and help you the most, respectively, okay? Additions, Will Smith, Travis d'Arnaud, Marcell Ozuna, Cole Hamels. Your key losses are Brian McCann, Josh Donaldson, Julio Teheran, and Dallas Keuchel.
The one that's going to help us the most is Will Smith. I'm on this guy, guys. I'm telling you, I'm on this guy. He's tall. He's lanky. He's a slinger. I just like Will Smith. And I'm probably going to shock you a little bit. The guy that we lost, or the guy that's going to hurt us the most, is that what we're going with? Is that right? The guy that's going to hurt us, I think Ozuna is going to hurt us the most. I think Ozuna hits 225. I think he has 7 to 10 home runs. And knocks in 25 runs at best, and that may be big with 60 games. But I think he hurts. But the person that we lost, that I really think that we lost, is Brian McCann. Brian McCann, I know that age catches up with you, especially when you're a catcher. But number one, you had leadership. Number two, you had Freddie Freeman's one of his best friends, along with Chipper Jones, and you had a guy that could control that rotation. And they believed in him, and they just had when he was behind the plate versus Tyler, you saw guys change the way they threw the baseball. And so I think losing Brian McCann, and that's hard to say over losing a Josh Donaldson that hit 37 home runs and 94 RBIs and became the bringer of the rain in Atlanta by himself, but along with him and Dallas Keuchel. But I really think McCann's the key loss.
David?
Yep. So I'm going to go with Steve. Will Smith is going to make that bullpen just that much better. Like we've talked about, they really got 3 or 4 guys that can close now. He's probably the best of the 3 or 4. I'm like Steve. That's who I'm giving the ball at the end of the game. So I'm going to agree with him there. The guy that I think that they lost that's going to hurt them, and Atlanta fans, I can think of a couple that we played with are going to hate me saying this, but I think losing Tehran's going to really hurt. You put Tehran in that rotation this year, and they got 4 good starters now instead of 3. And I think he really makes a difference. He probably wins a couple ball games that they're probably going to lose at this point or could lose at this point if one of those guys don't step up. So I'm going to go with Tehran.
Interesting. I'm going to go with Ozuna. I'm kind of as being the best of the pickups. That surprised me. You're not expecting a lot out of him. I do understand that. He has been consistent, but you just never know in a shortened season if he's going to produce or not.
Well, and again, I said he hit 241 last year, but lifetime, to his credit, he is a 272 hitter.
And I'll go with Keuchel. I mean, I know the Braves are a little lefty heavy, but this guy, if he can produce at any pace that he has in the past, would have definitely helped the Braves this year, especially on a sprint like this. To have a guy like Keuchel in there, that's a tough loss for them as well. So I think we went in a lot of different directions on that, which is not surprising. But so, Steven, let's go with this one now. What is the biggest position battle in your mind? I know we've mentioned this a little bit, but give me one specific spot and tell me what the biggest battle is going into this year.
Man, I think it's I really, really think it's Austin Riley and Camargo at third base. I think offense, defensively, you can get by with a subpar defensive third baseman. You can kind of hide him there a little bit. I mean, most of them are hot shots. You catch it or you don't type deal. But I think the offense that they gave up by losing Donaldson, you've got to create that offense to help fill the void. I know that you're trying to fill it a little bit with Ozuna, but I think that's going to be your biggest battle. And again, catcher could be, but I think catcher's more dictated by the pitching, by what the pitchers want to do. But I really think that third base spot is going to be that spot. And there may be, listen, when you got Will Smith and you got Melanson in the bullpen, both fighting for that closing spot, and they're saying Melanson right now is the closer. I'm sorry, but the guy had 34 saves. I don't know how you make him the setup man all of a sudden. That just doesn't make sense to me. But I do think third base is that first spot.
David?
Yeah, I'll agree with that. And you could look at the number 5 starter and say that's gonna be a battle as well. There's just a lot of guys there, a lot of different directions. Sometimes I wonder with King Felix, are we going to have Bartolo Colon 2.0? I don't know if you guys remember.
Oh, yeah.
On for a little bit, then all of a sudden he came back and he was a stud. We know King Felix knows how to pitch. He just may need the coaching to unlock whatever it is that he's lost. And so that number 5 starter, and I'm like you, third base will be the biggest battles.
Well, we go back to King Felix real fast. I don't mean to cut you off, but when you think about this offseason, listen how long these guys have had. And these guys, most of these bodies have not seen this type of layoff since they were in Little League. And so all of a sudden you got a guy that's 34 years old that he's like, wait a minute, I feel really good. I'm not, man, it's July and I feel like I'm in March. So I just think that could be, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I think that could be a huge, huge upside for some of these teams that went out and signed some veterans that all of a sudden they were hoping to get 120 games out of them. Now all of a sudden all they need 60. And if they can play 50 of those, now listen, again, that's why I think this is going to be one of the most exciting Major League Baseball seasons, maybe since McGuire Sosa.
That's good to hear, man. I saw that special the other night. Me and David talked a lot about that. That was a lot of fun that year. I actually came onto the campus of Tennessee Temple University in 1998 in the fall, and the Cubs made the playoffs that year, and then the Braves knocked them out, and I never heard of the end of it from Shelton. That was always something he harassed me about right away when I first knew him. So I'll never forget that as well. I definitely got a lot of crap from you on that one. So.
I'm consistent. If I'm anything, fellas, I'm consistent. All right.
All right. So Steven, I know we talked about Pache a little bit. But who's your number one help from the farm? You think that the Braves are some young guy that'll help them the most this year?
I think it's Kyle Wright. I think this guy's ready. I think he showed that in the spring a little bit. He had some trouble when he got to AAA. He had some trouble with his control. But listen, we both know that when you get to a different level, whether it's from middle school to high school or high school to college, you get a lot of jittery bugs in you that you never felt before, and you got to work through those. And so he was 0-3 last year with an 8.69 ERA. Who cares? I think this guy he's had time to mature. He's had time to get ready. I think this guy is the guy that we're going to look back on, and let's say he wins 5 games this year for the Braves, pitches, close to, if he wins 5 to 6 games for the Braves, this puts them, I think, in definitely a playoff slot and maybe even winning the AL or NL East.
David?
Yep, I'm going to totally agree with that 100%. If Kyle Wright can find it like Soroka or Max Fried did last year, then suddenly you've got a 3-headed monster. And so I'm going to 100% agree. There's another prospect. I left my notes in the living room, guys, so you're just going to have to forgive me on these names. Ian, I believe his last name was Anderson, also in AAA.
It is Ian Anderson, yep.
Yeah, so that's a guy I would watch out for too, because that's all that the Braves are missing at this point. So if one of those guys can step up and be like the rookies from last year, man, the Braves are very dangerous.
So I don't know very much about Pache. I know with as much outfield depth that this team has this year, we might not see too much of him, but I think with the rosters expanding, more of a taxi squad, you may be able to see him a little bit. I liked his .331 on base percentage in the minors. That's huge. That guy's getting on base 1 out of every 3 times. That's pretty impressive. So maybe this is the guy that comes up and helps you out a little bit this year. Could be one of those years. Me and David had talked about this a little bit, where some of these guys that you weren't expecting some things from, you may start to pop up here and there, and some of these young guys especially that are going to get a chance with such a sprint.
If the Braves are in it late, fellas, you talk about impact players that will be coming to Atlanta. If the Braves are in it late, the biggest impact player for the Atlanta Braves this year will be Kris Bryant, because I think the Braves put together a package. The Braves put together a package of because they're the most loaded farm systems in America. And so when you put together this package and you send it to Chicago, and Theo knows that he can't re-sign Kris Bryant, so I think that we toyed with the thing what should have been the offseason, but toyed with the thing through the holidays. I think the Braves put together a package to get Kris Bryant to fill that third base slot to go after a World Series.
Steve, that would be the greatest day of my life. That's all I'm going to say about that. That would be awesome.
Listen, there's no other – listen, if you talk about guys that are available, okay, talk about guys that are available, and you talk about what Theo would demand in return, Kris Bryant fits right into that lineup. They give him the right-handed power that they need to fill that third base slot. I think if the Braves are in it late, they sell the farm because they've got these other guys locked up, and we go after a World Series, and they think because everyone knows Kris Bryant's probably one of the best hitters in the National League. You go after him, you give up some of it, and you may get some of these guys we've just named. You may be giving some of these guys up to Chicago as they try to rebuild and try to win a World Series in the next 100 years. So I just think that this is one of those deals that Kris Bryant could be an Atlanta Brave by the end of the year.
DJ, I've got to hear your comments on this.
I can't, man. That's my guy. No, that ain't gonna happen. That's nonsense.
When you do the talk, it's like this. You got your info face straight, and so you do it like this. No, I'm serious, but I know you're a huge Chicago fan who wears Washington National hats, but at the end of the day, am I not making sense though? Does this not make sense for both teams? You get that you maximize what you can get. You buy low and sell high. If they can get 3 or 4 of these prospects from the Braves, get rid of Bryant because we can't re-sign him in Chicago, and the Braves are able to make a run. I mean, it's something that the Yankees would do in years past. You go out and get the best player available. You give away everything you can to try to win a World Series.
Let me tell you the only problem with that, I I really believe the Cubs are still going to be in it at that point. I don't think they'll be in sell mode. Now, I might be surprised. I think the Cubs were pretty big underachievers last year. And if we talked about this on our first episode, actually, the Cubs are still kind of built to win now too. They're just a player or two away themselves. So if they're still in there, I can see them wanting to hang on.
Oh no! I think they'll be rolling up the sidewalks by game 30. I mean, I think the pitching is just not very good. I mean, I don't know. I mean, DJ, I didn't watch that whole Cubs episode because I knew it was wasting my time. But what's that weakest point in Chicago right now? I mean, although the AL Central isn't very good, they're really not.
That's the problem right there. You just hit the nail on the head. And the Cubs, man, their lineup is loaded. They're a little bit actually kind of like the Braves, except the Braves are just younger. But they're
and I told what DJ was, of course, DJ texts me and sends out these, just awful texts I wouldn't share with anyone. But at the end of the day, I told DJ, I said, there used to be an NL East and an NL West. Well, they had to take all the teams that couldn't win outside of St. Louis and put them all together. And that's how they got the NL Central. And so that's what they've done. And so the Astros were so bad, we sent them to the American League, which then we found out how they won, but that's besides the point. The luckiest team in Major League Baseball, this year are the Houston Astros. We went from having people lined up from here to Japan to hit those guys with the first pitch to we didn't have to play. They forgot the World Series even happened last year. So hats off to the Houston Astros. Congratulations for COVID-19.
All right, so let's switch gears a little bit, Steven. We always have to talk a little bit about the stadiums, okay? So my guess is you've been to 3 Braves stadiums, obviously, in your lifetime. So what I want to hear from you is you've obviously been to all 3. Which one of the 3 is your favorite and why?
Well, let's start with my least favorite, Atlanta Fulton County Stadium. If you've ever been to the old Three Rivers Stadium or the old Riverfront Stadium or the old Washington Stadium there, they were all built the same. They were just circle stadiums. They were multi-sport. They were awful. And when I say awful, they were awful. And so the only good thing about Atlanta Fulton County Stadium was you could go and buy a $5 ticket back in the 80s and sit right behind home plate because no one was at the game because the Braves were that bad. Except for the 2-time MVP Del Murphy. And so then you go to Turner Field. Turner Field was really not a baseball stadium. It was Olympic stadium for the 96 Olympics that they turned into the baseball stadium. It had a decent field. Now, I've been to every Major League Baseball stadium except for 6. I've got 6 left on my bucket list. And but it was definitely a step up. It definitely was a step up. Parking was horrendous. You had a couple parking lots. Other than that, you just hoped and prayed you found somewhere to park. And so not as bad as Chicago. There's nowhere to park in that place. I mean, you got to admit, there is 0 parking there. If you don't know how to get on the train, or subway, you're in trouble. But I thought Turner Field, I guess we thought that Turner Field was so great because Atlanta Fulton County Stadium was so bad. The problem with Turner Field was it was too big, and unless you were in a really big playoff game, it really never was full. Now it was great when you're in big time games because all of a sudden it was electric. But now you've got whatever they've called it now. It's changed names twice since they built the stupid thing. It's 2 years old. The new stadium is by far one of my favorite stadiums. They've taken a little bit of every stadium, I think, and kind of merged in. But there's also the thing called the Battery outside the stadium. And where Chicago, outside of Wrigley Field, it is genuine small businesses that have come in there, and they got your T-shirts, you got your little places to eat, you got all these great places around Wrigley Field. Well, Atlanta has kind of done that, but they've made it more of they've built their own little town outside of the stadium. You can go to the movies. There's restaurants. There's bars. There's retail shops. There's all kinds of things to do outside the stadium. You can go to a 7:00 game and get there at noon, and you'll have plenty to do. And it's such a great family atmosphere down there now that it is by far my favorite Brave stadium, and it's really not even close at this point. But they've done such a nice job. They've made the stadium a little smaller. They kept some of the things they had at Turner Field, but they've also taken some things, some of the old brick look from other stadiums, especially Baltimore. They've taken some of that and kind of worked it in. But it's just a fantastic place to watch a game. I've been lucky enough to go to both Yankee stadiums. The new stadium is by far greater than the old stadium, although the old stadium, will always have that the air about it. But the new stadium is fantastic. But again, to answer your question, yeah, the newest stadium is by far the best baseball stadium in Atlanta ever.
David, what have you done for the 3 Braves fields?
I've only been to Turner Field, and this is kind of a weird story, but I went the year that it opened. My sister was a monster Braves fan. And honestly, from the beginning, I wasn't that impressed with it. I'll agree with a lot of what Steve said. I mean, it was probably an upgrade from what they had, but I was less than impressed. Haven't been to the new stadium yet. Seen it on TV, and it looks awesome. Definitely on my list. How about you?
Yeah, same thing. Just Turner. I believe I've been with both of you guys on that one for sure. That's one of the stadiums we've actually gone together with to see a game, Braves game, no doubt. I've been there a lot of times since obviously we were so close being in Chattanooga. So yeah, that's the only one I've been to. As far as the 3, the new one I have not been to yet. I had a cousin that my sister-in-law has her son just graduated college from high school this year, and was going to go down there and go to the graduation party and then try to catch a Braves game down there. Obviously, nothing worked out, but that was going to be it.
My invitation, you guys. If you both will fly down the same day, I will pick you up from the airport and we will go to a game. My treat.
I'm into that.
But yeah, you guys name the day. I'd like it to be a Monday through Friday so we can get off work, but that's besides the point. Which teachers hadn't worked since 2018, so it doesn't matter. You guys fly down, you get a date together on the same day. I'll get tickets. I'll pick you up from the airport. We'll go make a day out of it, and you can stay the night, or we'll put you right back on the plane same day. I don't care. So, but yeah, it's like I said, it's tons of hotels around the stadium. I really think you guys would enjoy it, especially as much as you guys love the game of baseball.
All right, cool. So we're going to switch gears a little bit here again, and this one's going to be easy for me to talk about. I know it's going to be easy for Steven. I'm only really interested kind of in what Dave is going to say on this because I already know the answer for me and Steven. But who is your all-time favorite Brave player and why? And I'm going to give you, Steven, I'm going to give you the option since we do this. Me and David did this with the Yankees and Cubs. I'm going to give you the option of doing your childhood guy and your now guy if you want, or you can just do one, whatever you want to do. But me and David.
I like that. Do I go first, or you want to go first? Go ahead. I mean, I'll go last even.
Yeah, I'll go first, then I'll go David. I have no idea who David's guy is. I'm pretty sure you guys can guess who mine is. It's pretty easy actually. Greg Maddux, by far, that's my guy for the Braves. Obviously grew up watching him in the 80s, pitching for the Cubs, and then he went in the 90s with the Braves and absolutely just dominated. I have a lot of respect for guys who barely can touch, the high 80s and maybe the low 90s if they're lucky and can spot the ball like they can and just actually pitch instead of just coming in and gunning guys down. So I respect Greg Maddux with everything I got. One of the cool things I do want to mention too, I did get to see Tom Glavine throw his 300th win at Wrigley Field. That was one of the cool games that I was at. So a little history there. That was pretty cool. I still got the ticket from that game. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he was with the Mets when he got his 300th win. I could be wrong on that, but I definitely was at Glavine's 300th win. So I will go with that. Yeah, that's a sore subject, I'm sure. But Steven, yours is easy, but I do want you to talk about him a little bit.
Well, I've actually got 3. I'm going to take you through my childhood, through my college years, and then really through today. And so, childhood is Dale Murphy. Dale Murphy played on some of the worst teams in Major League Baseball history. And Dale Murphy is a guy that I've actually got to spend a little bit of time with until he put the restraining order out on me. And so it's you're talking about a 1982, 1983 MVP. Nolan Ryan once said that he'd rather pitch to Mickey Mantle than Dale Murphy. And so I just think that you take the Murph and you put him again, and we'll talk about the Yankees. You take the Murph and you put him on a Yankees team and let him play his career with the Yankees. He's a Hall of Famer because he's got guys around him that again, you get Del Murphy up and you got Bob Horner behind him, Claudell Washington. They just pitched around Murphy. He struck out so much just trying to make contact. And so he either hit one out or he struck out. But he was always swinging because, he was not going to get a pitch to hit, but he was trying to make something happen. And so I just think that baseball writers are such a joke sometimes on some of these guys. We put Harold Baines into the Major League. Harold Baines never scratched the MVP, did he? Did he ever win the MVP? Okay.
No.
How do you let a guy the guy that won 2 MVPs back-to-back, who was one of the most dominant players for 10 years, him and Mike Schmidt dominated National League Baseball in the 1980s, and then all of a sudden injuries shortened his career because of knee injuries, and you just throw him by the wayside and say, well, his numbers are not good enough. Well, for 10 years, he was one of the best players in Major League Baseball. And so that it just irritates me to no end that Del Murphy is sitting outside, and I see some of these guys getting to the Hall of Fame, and I'm thinking these guys couldn't have carried Del Murphy's bag for 10 years in pros. And so, not to pick on Harold Baines, but that's just the first one to come to my mind. And so, as I got a little older and Murphy moved on to the Phillies and then retired, I tell you, John Smoltz was my guy. John Smoltz, didn't matter if he was coming out of the bullpen or whether he was starting. John Smoltz was a guy that I felt like he was a blue-collar guy. He was a guy that brought his lunch pail every day. He's going to give you everything he got. And the madder he got, the harder he threw it, and had that nasty split finger to go with it. I just felt like John Smoltz was, if I could start the Braves over again, as much as I loved watching Chipper Jones play, and so grateful that he spent his entire career with the Braves, John Smoltz was my guy in that era. It was Smoltzy, but today I'll tell you, it is hard to look at the Braves and not. I'm going to talk out both sides of my mouth. But I was a big Freddie Freeman guy, and I still am. But Acuna is so fun to watch, and you just like to watch because he's a kid. Now, he doesn't run out of fly ball and some other things, and that's just youth rearing its ugly head. But if I went all time, it'd be Murphy, it'd be Smoltz, and it'd be I guess it'd be Freeman. But Acuna's really knocking on the door of that. But those 3 guys to me are 3 guys that just epitomize Braves baseball.
So I'm going to 100% agree with you. Smoltzy was my guy too. I definitely loved the work ethic. I tried to emulate him. Smoltzy never was the flashiest guy. He was never the first guy mentioned when talking about the rotation. But he would be the guy I would want with the ball in his hand with the game on the line. If you're Game 7 of the World Series, you need to close it out. Or if you need a tough start, it was John Smoltz. So I 100% agree with you on that. He was my guy too.
All right, so this next little segment we got here. So David and I have been trying to think of every team that we go through, our former teammates. How many of those guys are fans of the team that we're talking about? Man, this one's going to take a little while, but I want to do this because this is going to be a lot of fun because about half of the guys that we played with, and that's no joke.
Yeah. I mean, listen, you're the only guy in Chicago that calls Chattanooga Chattanooga. I love it. And so this is they actually says it correctly. And so there is an A before the N, but so it's fine. You guys, most of our guys were from East Tennessee or Southeast Tennessee or Georgia. Go Joe Friend. He was from right outside of Atlanta. I mean, you got to start with Joe Friend. Myself, I was a diehard Braves fan. Casey Caldwell, Brian Kaywood, Brian Howard was not a Braves fan. Jason Morgan was a Braves fan. If we go around the infield, I'm sitting here thinking of other guys that were Braves fan. Robert Hall was a Braves fan when he wasn't puffing on that inhaler in left field. He was a Braves fan. So I probably talked to Robert more than any of you guys inside, a lot of those guys. Those are the first guys. I don't think Donnie Cruz was a Braves fan. Well, he may not have been there by the time you guys.
Let me stop you there. I was talking to David today, and I don't know why I don't have a clue who Donnie was a fan of. That's the one guy I could not figure out.
All I remember is he was like, I remember he was getting his Social Security checks that last year he was there. But other than that, I don't remember anything. I just wonder. I didn't know what Social Security was, and he was like getting these checks because he was so old. But he's coming. I said, "Is that your mom?" He's like, "No, it's my wife." And I was like, "Okay." So that if you go around the infield, Howard wasn't, Swor wasn't. Let's say Swor's pitching, Friend was, if he was pitching, Morgan was, Chris Davis when he was at shortstop, or was it Chris? He was an Orioles fan. Then whoever else played shortstop. Caldwell was a Braves fan. Kaywood was a Braves fan. Whoever else played first, I guess Joe Friend played first some. Cruz, I don't know. JP was a Braves fan. I was a Braves fan. So yeah, I mean that's. You had the Jenkins twins, twin 1 and twin 2. They were Yankees fans, I think.
Orioles.
Oh, Orioles. Okay, Orioles fans. I just remember them throwing softball underhand in the outfield before games. DJ was Chicago. Man, I'm going through all these old guys that and then I moved on. You guys had another year or so, but quite a few Braves fans.
Is there anybody that he didn't mention that you can think of, Swor?
Well, Caleb Markham was just a little past. That's a little past Steve. Steve, I want to bring up something that I brought up to DJ today. He asked me about Donnie. And did you know I wasn't allowed to know you guys? I was stuck over there on that freshman van with Coach Hall and all the other freshmen. We weren't allowed to talk to you guys. And so I didn't have –
Listen, Donnie drove us to Kentucky one time because I don't remember what happened. I don't remember there was something that happened with one of the coaches. Donnie ends up driving, and I go to sleep because, I slept on the road trips. I wake up, and Donnie's got nothing but a cowboy hat on. I mean,
we talked about that.
I'm waking up, and I'm like, what in the world is going, And I remember Chad Owenby pecked me on the shoulder and said, hey, Captain, you may want to go up there and look at what's going on. And I took a gander, and I was like, nope, no thank you. I was like, no, don't. So, and I don't – listen – I remember Dave Swor, his first day he comes down to visit Temple, and it was at Ingle Stadium. Am I right?
That's right.
I'm right. So
on the gas, buddy.
I don't even remember you throwing. So I was like, so all I remember is we were so poor in pitching because again at Temple we were like really good one year and awful the next, really good one year and awful the next, and so I just remember was it Coach Hall or Coach Templeton? I don't remember that part. Who was there then? Was both of them there?
Both of them were there, yep.
Okay, so I think it was Coach Hall, and he said, this guy's from West Virginia or something, and I was like, okay. He's like, he pitches, and I said, sign him. He's like, why? I said, sign him. I said, we need if he can throw it 60 feet 6 inches, sign him, because I just remember. But Swor, I tell you, Swor developed into a guy that was just everything he threw. It looked like it moved from the outfield, and just. I always liked when Swor pitched because he always worked away, and that means I could sit out there and eat sunflower seeds all day long. And so JP and those guys, they had a busy day, and I was just – if he missed, I was in trouble because I wasn't paying attention most of the time. So, but no, I tell you, Swor developed into a really, really big-time guy that I tell a mutual friend of ours that works for Erie Insurance that, I said, this guy was just a workaholic, and I said, he'd grind you into making a bad swing, and I said – but I loved it because I played left and he worked away, and here I am. But no, it's really you think about all the guys we played with. There was a lot of Braves fans, even guys that really weren't from the greater Chattanooga area. Were a lot of Braves fans because most of them were from that southern region.
You need to ask Mike Jenkins about when I visited Temple. So keep in mind this is February. We still haven't seen a baseball field in West Virginia, and I hadn't seen a baseball. And Coach Hall wanted me to throw. And basically I was bouncing those 45, 50-foot curveballs up there and beating the heck out of Mike's shins. So you need to ask him about how that went. It was awesome.
Those guys, I played with them for 3 years, and I still couldn't tell them apart. I just say twin every time. And they would look. And just whichever one I was trying to get, hey, twin. And they turn around. I'm like, and so, you guys knew exactly who they were. And obviously, I have no idea. But, yeah, there was I tell you, when you play that level of baseball, you got guys that were, right here in normal college baseball programs. You got guys here that kind of goes down like this. At Temple, you had guys that were here and then here. There was no in-betweeners here. You had people like me and Swor, and you had like DJ. It was just like really, no. But I tell you, it was – I look back and wish I'd have done differently and played differently, but I tell you, I would not take back those years with those guys. There are some lifelong friendships that just, when you pick up the phone. I mean, DJ answers the phone today and says, well, and I don't even say hello. It's like off to the races we go. So it's that's the type of things that I just think people, overlook the sports aspect of playing together. It's just those friendships that you truly make, that it's not, hey, how you doing? It's like we just take it to that level from the get-go. And so
That's right.
I'm gonna add a little story here too. I know since we're talking about this, I'm gonna go with it. Steven, I'll tell you, man. So when I got there, I was telling Swor the other day, I was recruited while Kerry Wood was striking out his 20K game. Skinny was calling me, offering me to come down there, and and so I get there, and I can't, I'm redshirting because I think that ended up obviously being the right career move with me, with JP in center field. So I redshirt with Steven and JP out in the outfield and Donnie, and then I get my freshman year, I was behind JP as well. And then I started sophomore, junior, and senior year. But, man, let me tell you something, man. I always looked to you as one of the captains of that team. I think you were. And for you to kind of take me under your wing like you did, that meant a lot to me, man. I was scared to death. I'm the only guy from the Chicago area. I got nobody. I don't know a soul. And you guys took me under your wing and you accepted me, and that meant a lot to me. And it obviously it let me progress, because if you guys wouldn't have done that for me, I would have had a really hard time. I wouldn't have adjusted as well, and I don't think I would have played as well as I did. So thank you guys for that. And to kind of go a little bit more off of what you were talking about with David, when I get in center field when David's on the mound, he knows I'd lay out for him every time, and I'd give my body up for him, making the catches. And one of the things I loved about David is he'd always tip his cap to you, hey, thanks, man. And for a pitcher to do that, that means a lot when, as you know, Steven, as an outfielder, when you're giving your body, you're running into the wall or you're diving, and your pitcher's out there and he tips it and appreciates that. That's something that's really cool, too, in this game. And I'm going to run off a few more names you didn't mention. Mouse Davis, Toby.
Braves fan, yep.
Joseph Lyon, he was a cup of coffee with us maybe. Aaron McGirt.
Gosh.
Martin Ortiz. Jason Stiltner.
Coach Skinny remembers Martin Ortiz, but keep going.
Oh, I'm sure he does. Nick Byers, right?
Yeah.
Nick Byers. Josh Jones.
Yep.
Chad Owenby. Yep. Brad Raby. Lee Selliers.
Golly, he's a policeman in Chattanooga.
Yes, sir. Isaac Henson. These guys are more of me and David's end years. Ryan Hill, Steve Rhodes, Bruce Smith, David Castile, Ryan Coffey, Josh Hill, Matt Locklear, Mitch Norman, Ryan Veal, Micah Miller, Aaron Disney, and Keith Galloway. So
I remember these guys. I mean, I'll be honest. Go back to you, DJ. I'll tell you what. I didn't be honest with you. I don't even understand the word you said the first year you were there. So it's then we got that Southern accent in you, and boy, we really know. So I remember your first 2 years there. JP and I. He was in center, I was in left, and I spent those 2 years arguing with JP after every pitch. And he would say, move over or scoot over this way. And I'm like, JP, I'm not, JP at some point thought he was the captain. And I'm like, you've got to be, listen, JP, you've got to be old enough to ride the rides at Lake Winnepesaukah to be able to be the captain. So, I mean, and are tall enough. And so, but JP was such a tremendous teammate and tremendous friend. And that's probably one of the saddest days of my life is the day that they called me and told me JP got killed, right after we graduated. And so, but I tell you, I remember you throwing it to the cutoff man, and it was like you were trying to place it. And I was over there just furious, and I'm just like, and finally I remember, I probably can't use all the words I used at that Christian university, but I remember saying, if you don't just throw the ball through the guy, through him, and you kept saying, what? I said, you said, I've got to hit. I remember you said, I've got to hit the cutoff man. I said, no. You throw it where he can catch it. You don't throw it to him. And I remember the first 2 or 3 times you let it go, And I remember they let it go and go all the way to, second base or third base in some cases, and your arm continued to get better and better and better. And that's the one thing. And I remember Coach Hall told me before a practice one time, he said, if you don't hit the cutoff, man, on every relay throw today, you're going to run 10 poles. So I just threw my glove down and went ahead and started running because there was no way in the world I was going to hit that cutoff, man, on every throw. So I remember I ran those poles, and he said, "What'd you do for that for?" I said, "Come on, Coach. We both know it's not going to happen." So, but I don't know if you guys remember this game, but Howard brings it up. He's brought it up in the past. We were in Alabama playing, and JP was starting. And I think you may have redshirted that year. I can't remember. It was my junior or senior year. So you were there. And we ended up throwing out 7 guys at home plate in 2 games. And remember, Howard gets knocked out. The last time Howard gets knocked out. So we get him over to the dugout, and because I threw it up the line a little bit, and he caught it and knocked. And I remember Howard looking at me. I mean, bloodshot eyes. He'd got trucked. And JP screaming, though, at the third base coach, "Stop sending them! Stop sending them!" I mean, that little high-pitched voice. I get to the dugout, and Howard said, I said, "My bad, man." And he said, "If you throw one more ball to home plate," he said, "I'm going to cut you open after this game right behind this dugout." And Howard's a guy that you didn't know if he was telling the truth or not. So, Ron Howard was the ultimate teammate. If there was things that I could write a book about, it would be the things he told you when he walked to the mound with no one else could hear.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh boy. And there are some things that you couldn't even tell your worst enemy. I mean, that he'd tell you while you're out there. But no, listen, I got the pleasure of watching you guys develop, and it was a DJ. You went from being a guy that loved the game that became really good at the game, and it was just a little lacking with confidence. And luckily, that was a department I didn't lack much in. So it was easy to share that with you. And the same thing with Swor. Swor, I remember Swor's first game coming in, and the back of those pants couldn't be any tighter. And so, but then it gets to be a guy that wants the ball, and that really changed things for us as well. But no, you guys are doing a great job with this. I enjoy the heck out of it. I know it's 11:19. I've got to get up. I still work out in the mornings. Never mind. I won't go into that.
I hadn't done that in years.
Yeah. Well, I'm doing it because I'm getting close to death. I want to look good in the coffee. So it's
All right. So as you said, we've been going for a while, and I told David, I'm like, clear out an hour and a half tonight because we're gonna be rambling on. So. I'll give you guys some trivia to end with, some Braves trivia here, and then I'll give it to Steven if he wants any closing stuff he can talk about. We'll go from there. So I got 2 trivia questions. I got one for you, Steve, and I got one for you, David. So I'm going to start with you, Steven. I'm going to put 1 minute on the clock, okay? You've got 1 minute to give me the top 10 all-time career home runs in a Braves uniform. Top 10 in a Braves uniform.
Does that have to be in order or just top 10?
Just top 10. I don't care what the order is. Just name the top 10. Ready? Go.
Chipper Jones, Dale Murphy, Ron McCann, Ron Gant, Dave Justice, Claudel Washington. I don't think Hank Aaron would be in the top 10. Hank Aaron's in the top 10. Javi Lopez is in the top 10. Let's see. I said Chipper. Ronald Acuna's not in the top 10 yet. Freddie Freeman. Fred McGriff is in the top 10.
Freddie Freeman is. You got that one.
Freddie Freeman's in the top 10. Let's see here. Center field. Who would have been center fielder?
15 seconds.
I'm about to end. Let's see. I don't know. That's
all right. So you got 5. You missed Eddie Matthews, Andrew Jones.
Oh gosh.
Joe Adcock, Bob Horner, and Wally Berger.
Bob Horner I wasn't sure about, but Andrew Jones, I just missed that one. So Andrew Jones and Bob Horner I should have got. The other 3. Eddie Matthews I thought was more Milwaukee than Atlanta. So that was was that just Atlanta or was that Milwaukee and Boston? Because that's a trick question. If you went all 3, I would have said Matthews.
Okay, yeah, you're right about that. I should have said just Braves in general, like
Okay, all right. No, that's
across
cool.
the board.
Remember, they were Boston, then Milwaukee, then Atlanta.
You're right. Yep. All right, so David, here's yours, buddy. So going along that line with the whole thing, the whole Braves franchise all time. Who is the pitcher? And Steven, I want you to be able to steal this one because I don't know if he's going to get it or not. So you wait in the wings if he doesn't get it. Who is the pitcher who has the most career wins in a Braves uniform?
Warren Spahn.
Yep.
He got it.
Yeah,
That's impressive.
Yeah, Warren Spahn.
Good one. I'm sure Steven knew that too, but I immediately go to the big three on that. So I would have probably been tripped up on that one and forgot completely about Warren Spahn. But I think his number was 356 in a Braves uniform, which is unbelievable, obviously.
He's the only one in a Braves uniform, solely in a Braves uniform. So,
Steven, I'm going to leave this to you here to end it. You got anything to add about anything at all in general?
This has been enjoyable. You know, this will be the only one of these I watch fully, and so I really, you guys are. This has been fun. I can't wait to see who some of your other guests are. And again, my offer stands. You guys come to Atlanta, we'll take care of you. Some Southern hospitality. We'll do it right. But you guys were great teammates, and appreciate what you're doing here for just to kind of go down memory lane and talk about some of our favorite things in life, which baseball being one of them. But you guys have grown into great husbands, and well, I don't know about DJ, great fathers. But and I know both of you have been very successful in life. So it is truly amazing. And I know Coach Hall echoes this a lot of times. Not Skinny, the other one. Echoes this a lot of times about how proud he is of those guys that went through and was able to play there and go on to be successful in life. So speaking of old guys, though, can anybody tell me where Billy Garrett is? Remember Garrett or whatever his name is from New York? Is he still?
He was in our last episode. If you'd have listened to it.
Was he really?
Man,
I thought he was
about it. I think he's still in New York or New Jersey, one of the two.
Oh, I thought you meant he was on there. I was gonna go back and watch it tonight. I mean, no,
his name got brought up.
Oh no! Last time I saw him, I thought it was on Unsolved Mysteries or America's Most Wanted or something. I don't know, but I mean, but yeah, dude, you just think about some of these guys. You're like, where are those people? I mean, where did they go? Anyway, man, you guys are fantastic. Hope we get to do this again. I don't know anything else about any other teams. But hey, we'll do a special episode as soon as the Braves trade for Kris Bryant. How's that?
No.
All right, I'm in on that. I'm totally in.
I'm done, man. So, Steven, it's kind of funny you mentioned it's going to be a fun week for us. We had an absolute blast, obviously. We knew this was going to be a lot of fun with you. We actually have Brian Howard coming in to talk Dodgers on Thursday night, so you got to tune in for that one.
Oh,
you know you love that one, man.
Listen, so have your beep button ready. That's all. Yeah. Howard got listen guys, let's finish this. We'll do what's called a segue into next episode. Howard got Teacher of the Year up at his school. We're talking about
what?
Do you listen? Are we talking about the same Brian Howard? I mean, we're talking about a guy that had to put Ziploc bags on his feet with some kind of medicine on him one time. And what? I mean, this guy. What? I mean. Who gives these awards out? The American Educational Society.
Must be better.
Yeah, the American Educational Society should come in and do a full investigation. Teacher of the Year. I mean, oh my gosh, what was that guy's name that taught history?
He must have some dirt on somebody.
Yeah. I mean, he's got pictures of something going. But listen, I mean, what was the guy that taught history that he took every class with? That talked like Elmer Fudd.
Mr. Swigert.
Swigert, yes. Yeah. I remember Swigert's last class I had with him. It was last year that I was there, and he said, well, as they say, that's all, folks. And I about fell out of my seat. I mean, I'm thinking, holy smokes. But, yeah, old Howard, that was his daddy. I mean, good grief. But, I mean, this is a guy that got shot in the chest with a nail gun putting fence up outside Tennessee interstates. I mean, this guy gets Teacher of the Year? You shot yourself in the chest with a nail gun, and – you get Teacher of the Year? I'm sorry.
That's awesome, man. So, Steven, before we go, David's been fun again. I got one sign I made for you today. I wanted to end on this. I love you, man. Like I said, you did a lot for me in my life. I appreciate it. It's great to have you on tonight. But this is what I'm going to go out with, buddy. I wore my Nationals hat for you tonight, and I made a sign for you too, and I want to go out with this. So if you'll enjoy this.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Nothing like the infield fly being the farthest ball Chicago hit that night to win. The longest infield fly in Major League Baseball history. I mean, it bounced off the warning track, and we hit the fly roll. Absolutely.
All right, David, you got anything to add, buddy?
One thing, and I want to end with this. Hold on. Song of the South. We just got to go out with that. Sing it, DJ.
You're killing me, man. All right, guys. Well, it's been a lot of fun tonight. Thanks again to Steven for joining us. And join us on Thursday night as we talk Dodgers baseball with our famous catcher, Brian Howard.
Don't want to miss that, I promise.